When Nellie Pou told Secretary Noem, "You are actually violating the law," she didn't speak for a talking point. She called out a concrete, dangerous practice, freezing or withholding money that Congress has already authorized and that communities depend on to plan, train, and keep people safe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, good afternoon. I wish we could have heard from you before ramming through a $70 billion reconciliation bill. But nevertheless, I'm really happy that and glad that we have a chance to speak with you today. Like many of my colleagues, I am deeply concerned that your department is blatantly ignoring our laws. The law is very, very clear. Members of Congress can show up unannounced to facilities, and ICE must accommodate a tour of their detention centers. The fact that your spokesperson suggested arresting members of Congress who were given a tour of the facility is disturbing and certainly dangerous. We will not accept threats or intimidation by anyone at your department or across the administration for exercising our constitutional oversight authority. Now, let me just refer now to my questions. The Trump administration's funding freeze has created chaos and unpredictability for state and local governments to respond to threats. Reportedly, $100 billion has been canceled or is being unlawfully withheld. You stated today that we are a nation of laws, yet you are actually violating the law. In our recent markup, I offered an amendment to prohibit DHS from delaying or withholding FEMA grant funding. Unfortunately, it was rejected by my GOP colleagues. As my district ramps up for the World Cup, our first responders and municipalities require resources today. By delaying and withholding grants like the Homeland Security Grant Program, you do not just create uncertainty, you undermine the ability of state and local governments to begin security planning for one of the world's largest sporting events. Right now, you are a month behind issuing guidance on this critical funding. Similarly, guidance has not been issued for the nonprofit Grant Security Program, which protects synagogues, churches, and mosques from threats. These delays harm our national security. Madam Secretary, when does your department plan for the Homeland Security Grant Program and the nonprofit Security Grant Program funding to be made available?
Congresswoman, every grant under the Department of Homeland Security is being evaluated to make sure that it's following statute as required by Congress as to how it should be allocated and obligated to local states and communities. So as many of those grants were paused and evaluated, you've seen that they've been continued and put out. But if they were misappropriated into things that were off of the guidance of how the grant should be utilized, then it was changed. But these grants that have been obligated and should go forward have been continued.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me just real quickly, because I know our time is it's nearing to a close. As you know, New Jersey is one of 11 American citizens that will, cities, that will host the FIFA World Cup matches next year. The final match will be held in my district in New Jersey. There will be tens of thousands of spectators at the final match and hundreds of thousands more attending Fan Fest throughout the northern New Jersey area. The World Cup is a time of international competition and celebration, but I worry about the chilling effect of the Trump administration's anti-immigrant rhetoric and America's ability to serve as a welcoming host. To add, the Trump administration is looking to reinstate and expand a travel ban targeting 43 countries for restrictions on entering the United States. Can you please tell us how you will ensure that fans traveling legally to the United States are not targeted for immigration raids?
We are already working as an administration with the teams from all the countries that will come and be competing and their fans as well to process their paperwork and to help facilitate their travel to the United States. And as you've seen, the president has formulated a task force that will focus on holding this unprecedented event, and doing it in the safest manner possible while adding hospitality to it and having people enjoy the matches and enjoy interacting with each other. And as you know, over 10 million people will attend the matches over that month-long period of time. Over 22 million people will interact through activities. You'd mentioned FanFest, and that is something that the Department of Homeland Security is tasked with. It's our responsibility to partner with local communities and cities that are the hosts, and we'll be working with your city as well to ensure that we're prepared for it, that we have the needs met, and that we are doing all that we can to secure each location.
Thank you. I look forward to working with you in that regard. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
What you just watched was more than an angry back and forth. It was a lesson in how government actually works, or fails to, when politics trumps law and public safety. Congress passes appropriations and authorizes grants for a reason. Those dollars fund training calendars, vendor contracts, multi-month procurement processes, overtime for first responders, and security upgrades for schools, houses of worship, sports venues, and other soft targets. You can't flip a switch and magically make those things happen the week before an event like the World Cup. Contracts need lead time. Background checks, equipment purchases, vehicle retrofits, and coordinated exercises take months. When the executive branch pauses or delays money that was approved by Congress, the practical effect is immediate. Plans are deferred, trainings are canceled, protective measures go uninstalled, and local officials are forced to scramble. There's also a legal frame here that matters. In our system, the power of the purse belongs to Congress. Agencies don't get to pick and choose which congressionally approved funds to distribute based on political preference. There are processes for reallocating or rescinding funds, but those are formal and require either a statutory basis or cooperation with Congress. When an agency says it is merely evaluating grants but simultaneously freezes them indefinitely, it's not a technocratic pause. It can be a usurpation of Congress's authority and a breach of the public trust. That's what Pou was pushing on, not rhetorical drama, but a basic constitutional balance. The national security consequences are real and measurable. Homeland Security grant programs and FEMA preparedness funds support fusion centers, bomb squads, emergency communications, cybersecurity for local governments, and protective measures for cultural institutions and places of worship. These grants are how small cities and suburban counties implement federally recommended protocols and strengthen interoperability between local, state, and federal responders. If those dollars are stalled, the chain that converts national guidance into local action breaks. The result is higher vulnerability during major events and less resilience when disasters or terrorist threats appear. Pou's mention of the World Cup wasn't theatrical. Hosting a global sporting event amplifies these risks precisely because of scale: foreign delegations, mass transit surges, fan zones, and temporary venues, all of which require coordinated federal, state, local planning. The Homeland Security Grant Program and the Nonprofit Security Grant Program are not luxuries for such occasions. They are the plumbing of preparedness. When municipalities don't know whether money will arrive, they can't finalize contracts for security personnel, establish unified command centers, or stand up the public-private partnerships needed to protect tens of thousands of visitors. Uncertainty is its own security threat. There's also a moral and human side that Pou made plain. When funding for synagogue, mosque, and church security is delayed, congregations, often small-budget nonprofits, are left exposed. When first responders can't buy ballistic gear or run anti-terror training because the grant guidance arrives months late, police officers and EMTs face unnecessary risks, and communities lose precious hours of surge capacity. These are not abstract line items. They are equipment, training, and lives. What does accountability look like in practice? Congress has tools: demanding clear timetables, issuing subpoenas, attaching riders to appropriations that require disbursement, holding markup votes to prohibit delays, and using oversight hearings to put public pressure on agencies. The Inspector General and the Government Accountability Office can audit decisions. Lawsuits are a last resort, but have been used when agencies refuse to execute appropriations. Pou's line of questioning was about forcing transparency, making sure there is a public record of why money was withheld and who made that decision. Beyond the legal fix, there are common-sense policy points viewers should learn from this exchange. First, preparedness is a multi-month project. Funding certainty drives effectiveness. Second, conflating immigration politics or ideological priorities with grant execution weakens national security because it inserts uncertainty into an ecosystem built on advanced planning. Third, oversight matters. You only get better emergency response when watchdogs ask hard questions at the right time, and when local leaders can rely on the federal government to execute what Congress authorized. The Inspector General and the Government Accountability Office can audit decisions. Lawsuits are a last resort, but have been used when agencies refuse to execute appropriations. Pou's line of questioning was about forcing transparency, making sure there is a public record of why money was withheld and who made that decision. Beyond the legal fix, there are common sense policy points viewers should learn from this exchange. First, preparedness is a multi-month project. Funding certainty drives effectiveness. Second, conflating immigration politics or ideological priorities with grant execution weakens national security because it inserts uncertainty into an ecosystem built on advanced planning. Third, oversight matters. You only get better emergency response when watchdogs ask hard questions at the right time, and when local leaders and rely on the federal government to execute what Congress authorized. If you care about preventing political interference with public safety, here are concrete actions you can take. Contact your representative and ask for a clear timeline and justification for any withheld FEMA or Homeland Security grants that affect your community. Urge them to support appropriations riders or audit requests that force transparency. Attend local emergency preparedness town halls and ask local officials whether federal grant timelines have affected their plans. Support nonprofits that help houses of worship and small organizations implement security upgrades. And vote for officials who commit to honoring congressional appropriations and insulating emergency funding from partisan delay. This is not partisan theater, it's an institutional test. Democracy depends on the predictable execution of laws passed by the people's representatives. When officials start treating congressional appropriations as tools of leverage, the result is not efficiency, it's chaos, risk, and broken trust. Nellie Pou called attention to that fact, and the question she pressed Noem to answer is one every citizen should keep asking of their leaders. Will you follow the law, or will you let politics endanger our communities? If you believe the law should matter, make sure your representatives hear you.